Hello and welcome everyone to Liam's Lyceum. I'm your host Liam, aka Himbar, winner of the prestigious Edward M. Covell Award and 3-year veteran reviewer. I think I was in the publishing industry for like 4 months, so it's pretty cool. Maybe more months to follow at some point. Today, I had like a billion ideas about what I should talk about, and one of those ideas is that I was like, I should start a series of videos about underappreciated authors, since I generally post reviews from underappreciated authors, but they're still underappreciated. Um, and I was like, oh, let me start with like William Morris or like C.L. Moore or Jack Vance or someone like that. And then I realized I have done videos on all those authors at one point or the other. And I have done videos on this author I decided to choose instead. Um, but I haven't done a ton of videos. It has not gotten as much focus because this is an author I read before I started my channel, largely. And so I also told him I would simp for him. And so here's my simping. The author is the one and only DJ Butler. Now, I should clarify, this is in no way like, I did tell him I would simp for him. Like, I'm not lying about that. But Dave, or Butler here, is a great author. I have met him, which is why I told him I would simp for him. But admittedly, I had read most of his books before I ever had any contact with him. So hence why I wanted to have contact with him. So Dave writes a lot of stuff. I believe this is his first published novel. This is the one I've not actually read. This is my most recent acquisition of Dave's books. And this is like steampunk Mormon, like empire or Mormon stuff going on. Sounds pretty stinking interesting. Those first books I showed you, this is the most recent one, is the Witchy War series. It is composed of, oh yeah, my Covell Award. Anyways, it is composed of my hair. Anyways, it's composed of like 3 like soft trilogies, as what I've heard it called. So Witchy Kingdom is the third of the original. Witchy Eye is the first book. The last 2 books are not out yet. But this is alternate history America. I guess about 1820. But America is not America. It is instead like kind of like the Holy Roman Empire, essentially. But there's also magic, very authentic magic. Some of the coolest magic you'll ever read. It is also full of, well, just so much, honestly. Just some of the coolest like world building you'll ever see. It has a bunch of languages thrown in there. Butler knows his language very well. And they're basically epic fantasy, though. Even though they're historical fantasy, they're essentially epic fantasies. So for fans of epic fantasy, they are very good. And they do have audiobook versions as well. You also have stuff like he does a lot of collaborations. So like if you have Time Trials, this just came out a few weeks ago with M.A. Rothman. This is like progression fantasy, but also sci-fi. Also like Lost World type of novel. It's a lot of things, and it's really good. And then you also have, let's see, another one he did, or a couple actually. These are some of my favorites, honestly. These are of sorts urban fantasy. The Cunning Man and the Jupiter Knife. They are called rural fantasy, somewhat too, because it's urban fantasy essentially, but it takes place in rural Utah in the 1930s. So it's also historical fantasy. It's during the Great Depression, of course. So he battles. Maybe he bites. He battles demons and witches and stuff. They're actually quite spoopy, to put it bluntly. But they're also very good. I actually read the Jupiter Knife after I started my channel. I didn't do a review because I'm dumb. I was thinking about doing one. I think I moved. That's what problem. No, I read it right around the time I moved, and I hadn't done a review for the Cunning Man, so I was like, oh, I should do one for the Cunning Man first, and then the Jupiter Knife, and then I didn't get back to looking more at the Cunning Man. Also, Butler is one of those weird authors at Baen who gets good cover art. So these are both by Dan Dos Santos. All the Witchy books also have him as the cover artist. These are really short, really easy to read. If you like urban fantasy, you'll probably really enjoy these, honestly. They are awesome. Not as overblown magic as you get in a lot of urban fantasy, very authentic, and it's very cool, I think. So other stuff he wrote by himself, In a Palace, Shadow and Joy. It's kind of Vancian, Liber type of stuff. Far future, uh, cool stuff happening. There's a sequel, maybe two sequels coming out this year as well. So there's a lot of stories about this duo Indrajit and Fix. Then it's actually, how do I say this? It's basically, actually, it is the only duo, the only set of stories I go out of my way to buy anthologies for. Like, I don't buy a ton of anthologies. I'll buy some anthologies and I'll read them slowly, but I will specifically buy any anthology essentially that has an Indrajit and Fix story in it, just so I can read that Indrajit and Fix story when it's new. Anyways, so they're great stuff. Abbott in Darkness came out last year. It is sci-fi. As you can tell, he's very varied, very varied in what he writes. This is sci-fi. It is kind of a everyman in a sense, actually, as our protagonist. He's an accountant. He goes to space. It's kind of a thriller. It's very fast-paced. Involves aliens. Involves cool alien language. It's very fun. And then you have a bunch of short stories. He writes a lot. He just writes a lot. So Florilegium of Madness by Hemmeline Press, which is a cool press you should check out, by the way. This has a lot of stories in it from various little things, like a prequel to Witchy War, some higher mold stuff in here as well, which is the name of the books that are urban fantasy but are rural fantasy actual. But yeah, so honestly, there's a lot to check out with DJ Butler. He is definitely, honestly, one of those underappreciated authors that I think a lot of people would enjoy if they knew about him and if they picked up his books and read them. So there's a lot to be offered, and there will be more, of course, because he still writes more. Anyways, so it's been Liam Williams Lyceum. I will